Starting the video here in the front yard. We were just looking at bees and butterflies that are on the Heptacodium micronoides tree, which is the Seven Suns flower tree. It's non-native, but the bees and butterflies really like it. I have a grass-free front yard. This is Chrysogonium virginianatum on native ground cover. The front yard is covered in native and non-native ground covers. Over here on the north side of the house, behind this Camellia sasanqua, is a stand of rhododendrons. I've seen 34 species of birds in my yard. The latest one was a ruby-crested kinglet. There are 3 rain barrels behind the rhododendrons, and attached to it I have a drip irrigation system that automatically waters some of the plants that need it. That's what that black line is there. It goes out to some of the plants that might require watering more than others. This is the south side of the house. There's a Lobelia confetti, not native, but there's also a lilac, lavender, and these plants that have been cut out at the bottom, they were here. They were actually Burford hollies, and I was going to dig them out, but instead I trimmed them up like this, and actually mourning doves and robins will sometimes make their nest in there. The robins also like the Seven Suns tree in front. So approaching the deck here, you can see I have a fig in a pot. I have 2 figs, and I also have this plant called Citrix hystrix, which is a lemon tree that is used in Thai cooking. The leaves have a strong lemon flavor. This bush is hedgerow gold cornice. I recently purchased aster wood glue, and I also recently purchased this deciduous ilex. This is the female, of course, because it has berries. My neighbor has a male, so I don't have to worry about getting a male. This is one of the sambucus. This is recently planted. It is lemony lace. Doesn't look like much at the moment. Back here is ceanothus, I think it's called, which is the New Jersey tea plant. And below that is an Indian pink. This area is watered by, you can see the black lines, automatically from the rain barrels that are behind the shed. And that's sedum autumn joy back there. We leave the deck toward the back part of the yard. I have an unusual variety of beautyberry. It's called summer snow, I think, on the left there. On the right is a redwood tree. And I have 2 hummingbird feeders that I need to take down because I think they've all flown south. This is a bird bath that I made out of scratch material. It's made from a pot, has good gripping, it's flat, it's only 1 inch deep. The trunk there is not a tree. It was a tree at one point, but it wasn't growing there. I cut it off and it's sitting on top of a stepping stone so that it stays off the ground. It's been there about 10 years. And this bird bath was recently featured in an online forum called Garden Rant. The black-eyed Susan variety behind it has recently almost stopped blooming, and there's an echinacea in there too that doesn't bloom anymore. And that is, of course, red osier dogwoods, 2 of them. That's also hedgerow gold. It looks a little different than the other one. There's pink muhly grass below it. And this is a serviceberry tree, Juneberry, Shadberry, has all kinds of names. Right below that is Clethra alnifolia. I think summer sweet is its common name. And this, of course, is a beautyberry, which gets stripped of its berries by usually a mockingbird. This is a trellis I built, and on it is the native variety of wisteria. And to the right of that is Itea. You can see its light green leaves there. There's some astilbe in there. And to the right is Calmia latifolia, which is mountain laurel. 2 rain barrels that collect water off of the shed. The tree was 8 feet tall when I bought the house. It's now about 20 feet tall. It is Nellie Stevens holly. It's one of the self-fertile hollies. It gets berries on it, and every year, I think March or April, the cedar waxwings come through and they strip it completely bare of all of its berries. You can see there's a birdhouse on the right. That's the one that I built, which they seem to like the most, either chickadees or the little house wrens. And I saw a common yellowthroat recently. Oh, I forgot to mention. So Mount Cuba Center developed this coreopsis. It blooms very late, and this is its first year, and it's just starting to bloom. And I noticed a common yellowthroat was eating up all of the aphids off of it. Back there is a Sambucus black lace, and that is a native dogwood. Coming through the trellis. This is Epimedium sulphimurium. Great ground cover plant, not native, but it was a great grass replacement. Over here on the right, we have a big stand of Sedum autumn joy, and in front of it you can still see the leftover seed heads of Echinacea, all purple clone flowers. Of course, the goldfinches love that plant.
Hi there, welcome to my garden. My name is Lois Borganicht, and I'm going to try and take you on an efficient tour and show you my most bird-friendly features. We're coming up to the bird bath, which looks like stone, but actually it's resin. It was my mom's, so I'm particularly happy to use it. And I clean that out pretty well every couple of days. It gets a little slimy, but on a hot day, there's definitely bird parties. And here is some newly planted blue star, Amsonia. And then over here, this is a very fun plant. Macrophylla something or other. It's called pink snowberry. And then over here, I have asters. And this is my water tank. I call my Marcel Duchamp. I think it gives structure to the garden. And then here we have lovely sedums and some different colored asters. Most years I don't have luck with the pink, but this year it's very happy, which is very nice. And I'll show you more closely my other halberd-leafed hibiscus. Then I have over here, oh, you can hardly see it, this smoke tree. It's absolutely glorious. And then we will come down here. Where I have lilies. I have Epimedium, not native, but very attractive and very tolerant of this very, very dry shade under this tree. And then as we come down a little bit further towards the corner, here's a wonderful mock orange, which I recently transplanted from a friend's house. So I'm looking forward to those wonderfully scented flowers in the spring. And then I will take you down here where I have this kind of very wild and crazy aggressive rose, which, sorry, I don't have any blooms to show you today. Here is one of my brush piles, so the birds have a place to hang out. This is a prairie coneflower, also called Ratabida pinnata. And I have lots of asters, which are happy and spread like crazy. Here are a couple of volunteer cleomes this year. And then in here, I have a Rudbeckia laciniata. You can see those cut leaf Rudbeckia. And somewhere in there, you may be able to see one of my serviceberry trees, Miscanthus gracilis. And And then I will show you one of the garden stars. Ah, yes, here we have a goldenrod spassalata, which is a low-growing goldenrod. Whoops, sorry about that. Low-growing goldenrod, which has been very happy and very pretty next to the asters in the fall. And this is my very marvelous halberd-leafed hibiscus that puts out these wonderful kind of black pods in the fall, and this absolutely lovely flower. Not too gigantic, so it's not really gaudy, but very pretty. And oddly enough has multiplied. My neighbor has 2 that just arrived. So that's one of my very fun surprise plants here. Then we have Geranium macrorhizon, which blooms in the spring, a little bit in the fall, and the leaves smell very peppery and wonderful. I forgot the name of that grass. Then we will see over here, useful but annoying, variegated vinca, which is the only thing I could get to survive under this tree. And then here I have a small cutting garden that has some beautiful sunflowers still, few that are still hanging out here. And then I have Mexican sunflowers. And then over here, those were very wonderful lilacs. And here I recently planted these 9-barks. I've been searching and searching for a native bug and bird friendly foundation plant. So far these are surviving, so I'm hoping for the best. And I have a south exposure, and a friend just gave me a cutting, 2 cuttings from her fig tree, so I have that. And yet another little serviceberry tree, which seems quite happy. And here's a very beautiful clematis, which I bought as purple, but happens to be white. And then over here, coming around to the front of the house, I have a single blooming rose called Chuckles, which doesn't get any bugs, which is very fun and smells lovely. And then I planted Zizia for the swallowtail butterflies, and here, and a red bud. And then this garden, I'll give you just a general view, is very, very shady due to this absolutely huge and magnificent Zelkova tree. The shade is very dense, so it's been a work in progress for many years to figure out what to grow here. I have recently planted some Rivulus. I've planted quite a few of those around, and they have some black and some sort of dark reddish leaves, and I'm hoping for the best with that. And I'm slowly trying to replace the Liriope, although very attractive, doesn't do much for any of our birds and bees and bugs, with this Blue Bunny Hobbs Carex that I got from my gardening friend Debbie Swartz. So they're surviving, and she's promised to give me more. So that's it, always a work in progress. Oh, I have lots of birdhouses. Apparently they don't like it new. So I clean them out all the time, but so far I have no occupants. But I'm always hopeful. All right, enjoy gardening and all the best.
Park started as a vacant lot on the corner of Falls Road and Belmore Road. It was owned originally by the neighborhood, but it was simply a vacant lot with trees overgrown with invasive vines. Over a 5-year period, we've developed it into a place where there are paths, native plants. Presently, you can see goldenrod, 9-bark, yellow twig dogwood, eupatorium, sweet bay magnolia, and we'll go through the gate. Amsonia, bayberry. We originally put in several trees: redbud, dogwood, white oak, yellowwood, fringe tree, river birch. As we go up the path, there's Lonicera, the native honeysuckle. The paths are marked with strips of bamboo, which we removed from an invasive area in the Stony Run. Down some paths, we see St. John's wort, bottlebrush buckeye, linder of benzoin, Clothra alnifolia, oakleaf hydrangea. And since we don't have either power or a water source, we have a waterfall and cliff, which were made as a dry version of waterfall. This area, which was originally quite sunny and had a lot of Joe Pye weed and cup plant and ironweed, now has fallen into the shade of the black cherry tree and the American holly and the American red cedar. As we go up to the highest portion of the path, we'll see that this year eupatorium has gone glorious thanks to all the rain. Here, oakleaf hydrangea, which has been somewhat eaten by the deer. You can just barely see the 7-foot deer fence there on the hillside, which completely surrounds the property but doesn't keep them off. Here in our most shady area, we have ginger, Asterum canadensis, maidenhair fern, ostrich fern, mist flower, 2 other ilex, the sumac, and a hornbeam, a tree which is now gloriously enjoying the fact that last year we had to clear out 12 trees that were on the hillside that I'm pointing at now and that were dangling over Falls Road. Here, one of our nice features is in a dense shady area. We have a play zone for children where they can do imagination nature play in this environment with a bamboo chime, a mud kitchen, and areas where you can jump stump to stump, walk the plank up fallen logs, or build a castle. All of the materials, there's one of our native inhabitants jumping around. All the materials here are composted on the property and recycled back into the soil. If I go back down to where we can see everything from a height, we can sit on our bench and look down into the park and the various paths that had to be, this was a steep hillside, and those paths had to be dug into the hillside. Each year they are kept from growing weeds by wood chips. These wood chips you see here came from the 12 trees that were cut from the hillside in January, and then we spread them. They will keep the weeds down probably for 2 to 3 years before we need to put another layer down. Welcome to Poplar Hill Park.
putting suet back out.
In 2015, I went to an Audubon bird garden workshop and learned about creating ecosystems that support wildlife, particularly birds, and learned that when you plant native plants that they attract the kind of bugs and environment that birds need to survive. And so I pulled out almost all the non-natives and replaced them with native plants, and I have to say within about 6 months I noticed a big difference and started seeing more birds, and after a year had passed it was a radically different place, and it's really quite a joy, and it's pretty self-maintaining. I don't really have to weed or anything. I have multi-level gardens. This is sort of my half sun, half shade garden. On the second floor roof, I have my vegetable garden, and I include flowers and amaranth to provide food for the birds. I also have a cattle trough filled with milkweed of all kinds, and I see butterflies, and it's quite wonderful. And now the third level has succulents.
My garden is an extension of our home. It serves as our kitchen, as our reading nook, as our entertainment center. We also like to incorporate music back here, so it serves as our dance floor sometimes, and we also throw a lot of art back here. My garden was completely inspired by the Patterson Park Audubon Wildlife Gardening Workshop. I went to the workshop with one vision in mind and left with a completely different vision. We live in a very active city, and although we have a very nice park less than a block from our home, it's important that we have a place of our own where we can take a break from the hustle and bustle of city life. Our garden is important to a variety of birds and insects. We like to joke that it's the circle of life back here. We have pollinators that help provide us with fruits and vegetables. And then we also have praying mantis and ladybugs that will eat the aphids. We have native plants that are very important to the life cycle of insects such as swallowtails and monarchs. And then we also have the birds that will eat the seeds from our black-eyed Susans or drink the nectar from our honeysuckle.
We're in the Conkling Street Garden, which is a community garden started by the Highlandtown Community Association about 3 years ago with the help of the Southeast Community Development Corporation and the International Rescue Committee. The Conkling Street Garden is a little under an acre. We have raised beds for gardeners to plant whatever they want, between flowers, vegetables, we have some fruit trees. About a year ago, with support from the Patterson Park Audubon Center, we installed a habitat garden at the front entrance of the Conkling Street Garden. There we planted some shrubs and flowers that will provide seeds and berries for birds year-round. This garden gives me the opportunity to learn a little bit more about native plants that are good for supporting bird and bee populations. It also gives me an opportunity to garden in a larger space, which, living in Baltimore City, I have a concrete pad with some containers in the backyard. However, I've now started putting some of these plants into my backyard as well. When my husband and I moved into the area, we were walking home from Patterson Park one day, and we could hear all of these birds chirping. And as we got closer to our home, we stopped hearing the birds. And over the last 10 years or so, with more of a concentrated effort to plant trees in the neighborhood and do community gardens and build some habitats for our local birds, we've started to see a population come back and thrive in the neighborhood. It's really given an opportunity for our neighbors to take ownership of something in the neighborhood and beautify it and just really make it a much prettier area for people to pass by when they're walking down the street. Prior to starting the garden, this was a large stretch of overgrown grass, and nobody was doing anything productive in here. So when we started this garden, people have stopped and said, wow, look at what you've done to this area, and have really noticed all of the work from all of the neighbors that have gone into the garden.